Everyone, hi, good evening. Bruce Muffson, LCSW, SUNRIDGE of Nevada, coming at you with another live stream. Tonight's topic is going to be about PTSD and really the complex aspects of PTSD and how it affects you emotionally, mentally, physically. Also want to announce our schedule for the next couple of weeks. Next week will be probably 2 to 3 songs. We're going to break two to three songs down. And the following week on the 22nd, 7/22/21 at 5:30 West Coast time, we will be doing dysfunctional families. That will be the training to give people an understanding of what they're coming from and how this affects you. In a way, I wanted to do PTSD kind of like as a segue, because so often with dysfunction comes trauma, comes the PTSD. So tonight's PTSD, understand where it came from, how it affects you. Next week will be some video breakdowns of different music groups. And the following week on the 22nd, 5:30, will be our training on dysfunctional families. Let me clarify again what's going on, just a little bit who I am. Bruce Muffson, still LCSW. I have over 25 years experience as a licensed clinical social worker. I've worked with ages from 3 literally to 83, done thousands of assessments, worked with thousands of people, worked inpatient, outpatient. I've been to prisons. I've testified in court hundreds of times, supervised people, managed people, worked with all different types of personalities, a lot of schizophrenia, bipolar, PTSD, sexual abuse, and comfortable with all walks of life and all issues that come across. So when you're talking to me, you're getting a ton of experience, a ton of awareness. And I've said before on this channel and everywhere else, there is no one better than me when it comes to trauma, understanding yourself, and what direction you have to do to go forward. Just want to announce also the training, which will be on the 22nd, will be $10 through PayPal. Everything is in the description box. Go right through there. And just in case you got to throw us an email, sunridgeofnevada@gmail.com. We'll answer all your questions. And yes, we do take cryptocurrency. Not a problem. Okay, so now again, you know the routine. The floor is open. We know everyone likes to kind of gather around the campfire and watch what's going on a little bit. And that's fine. Watch me do warm-ups. But I want to talk tonight about PTSD, understand it. If I get to in time, I brought, of course, always several articles to clarify things. And I want to just talk about how the different aspects of it affects people so deeply. Okay, here we go. We were talking last week. I was talking about regular PTSD and talking about what's called complex PTSD, where it's more severe. And those cases of complex PTSD is where it happened more than once, happened for several weeks, several months, several years, or multiple occasions. And that can come from a lot of different areas. That's not an issue. It could come from war. It could come from a hostage situation. It could come from being a combatant or a civilian in a war zone. From a traffic accident. This past weekend alone, I think they said 250 Americans were killed by gunfire over the weekend across the country. It's like taking a rock and throwing it in a pond. Of those 250 people that unfortunately were killed, thousands more people are going to be affected by PTSD, very likely for the rest of their lives, losing a loved one, or seeing a loved one shot, or being in the middle of a crossfire, and how it's going to affect them for a long, 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 long time. So people think, oh, sometimes they say, well, just one person, God forbid, who unfortunately was killed. No. The damage to senseless violence, which in many cases it was, children were killed, young as like 3-4 years old. Believe me, it affects everyone around you, and it affects you in a very, very negative way. So that's what happened. So you think like, okay, July 4th, I'm going to have a barbecue. I'll be on the street watching fireworks. I'm going to blow off some sparklers, some M80s. Oh, my family's going to be in town. Let's bring everybody over. We'll barbecue chicken. I got corn going. And everyone's enjoying themselves. And then boom, 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 boom. After the screaming and the shouting and the ducking, you get up and you see several people not getting up. Either they're grievously wounded or unfortunately they're dead. And you're like, how senseless was this? Several of the parties, they were talking over 100 rounds were fired. 100 rounds. I mean, what's going on? I mean, it's not like, you know, one round or two is insane by itself, but over 100 means they're just what they call, you know, just, you know, pray, you know, spray and pray. It's crazy that someone has to go through that nonsense and that horror and that fear. It's insane to me, but that's what people are living with today. So I want to give you some kind of like foreground before we get started. Okay, here we go. Another thing is this is like, here's what I want you to understand. There's what's going to be a deep fear of trust. Very difficult time to be able to relate to somebody. Oh, we got our first one. Hey, how's it going? You're going to have a very difficult time with learning how to trust people because your body is short-circuited now. Your brain is short-circuited to be fearful, to be worried, to be frightened, to be upset. And it's like they develop an intense, deep distrust of trusting people. And if the abuse was parents or caregivers, this intensifies. Absolutely. Your stepdad is the one molesting you for 3-4 years, twice a week before it comes out. And let's just say, hopefully, God willing, they actually believe you versus you're a liar, you're a little slut, you're a whore, you're making it up, you're trying to ruin my marriage, get out, kick you out. You know, we're denied, which then lifetime. But you have a deep distrust of adults because they hurt you. They molest you. They do terrible things to you. Yeah, you can have a deep distrust of people. And I've seen this hundreds of times. You know, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. Why do you think people marry people that remind them of the parent that they didn't get along with? Because they're still trying to resolve things. You know, you'll see people say things like, I married my mother, I married my father. Why? Because I didn't get along with them. I didn't get what I needed from them. So therefore, I married somebody that I was hoping I'd get this resolved. I couldn't get it resolved with my bio parent, but maybe I'll do it with the person I'm going to now share a bed with or a life with. Believe me, it happens more often than you think because you don't have trust of people. So you're marrying somebody you're going to try and rebuild trust with. See that a lot. So understand that. And it's an over traumatized brain. Like your brain is never shutting off. It's like going on and on and on and on. It's like going on a ride that's fun for like the first 10 times in an amusement park. Like, you know, you do it. Oh, it's great. Go on the bumper cars again. No one's really here. Okay. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. And when you're going to go on the roller coaster, sometimes the guy will say, hey, it's a slow night tonight. You want to ride it again? And you're like, yeah, sure. But by the third time, fourth time, fifth time, you start getting nauseous. But the brain is short-circuited that it doesn't get a chance to turn itself off. I had that problem myself sometimes. I'm always worried about that shoe's going to drop on the other foot. Like I'm going to have something disastrous happen to me. Probably very unlikely, but I live a life of insecurity and doubt because that's how I grew up, was a house of yelling, screaming, fighting, shouting, throwing things. So I'm always expecting things to go disastrously wrong when they probably won't, but that's my massive insecurity. Okay. Any questions people have right now, feel free to shoot them in. I'm here to listen and here to break things down for you. Okay. Terminal alertness. What does that mean? What that means is you are doing this constantly. Looking over your shoulder. Now, there was an article I took out a few months ago about this police officer from New York City, NYPD, that passed away. He was like in his late 80s, early 90s. I'm going to talk about him in a future video. He was one of two police officers when Martin Luther King, Dr. King, was actually stabbed right by the heart. I think it was the late 50s. And he had made a tour of New York City. And he was able to tell their officer to get him into an ambulance and take him to the hospital. And they actually saved Dr. King. And they said had they tried to pull the knife out, which was their first impulse, he would have bled to death. So he saved his life, you know. And he actually met him years later at I believe, a restaurant in Harlem. He walked over and he goes, you remember me? And Dr. King says, you look familiar. And it was the same officer. In his later years, after he retired from being a police officer, he had a nightclub where he had, you know, they would play the blues, a lot of jazz, a jazz club. And they said he would sit in the entrance. And they said, well, that's old school cop. You're watching everyone that walks in. You can't turn that off. He'd been a police officer for like 30 years. So now he was like in his late 70s, 80s. until he stopped working, but he would take a seat and watch everyone walking in. I get it. You get that permanent alertness. You can't turn that off. You ever been in adrenaline situations? That's how you think. You're always looking around to see what's happening. I do that myself. If I go to a baseball game, if I go to a sporting event, a concert, I'm always looking at the crowd to see how the crowd's going to react. Are they in a good mood? Is there tension? Is there going to be some kind of incident? Are people looking at each other like this? Are they doing this? Are they talking? Are they kind of making verbal gestures, physical gestures? I'm aware of those things. And that's because of my work that I'm so attuned to how people act or don't act. It becomes second nature to me. I'm always observing. If I drive my car, I'm looking at the people on either side of me just to be alert, to be aware, terminal alertness. And and here's another thing too, is that this person described as his victim said, having a glass wall between myself and other people. I can't connect with them. Yeah. To a certain extent, you wall yourself off because it's very hard for you to connect because you're always afraid of how this relationship is going to work, how it's going to come together. Is it going to be workable? Is it going to be feasible? And, this aloneness. And that's what happens. They feel so little connection, trust with people. They're in a terrible state of being surrounded by people. Not alertness, aloneness, where you feel alone. Terminal alertness is a different thing. I apologize, but terminal aloneness, where you feel you are the only person in the room and you can't connect, and everything is like this, like the glass wall, and you're behind it. So that's what often happens to people. Okay, next one. Emotional regulation. Intense emotions are common with complex trauma survivors. It's understandable that ongoing abuse, brings intense emotions. This is normal for complex trauma survivors. And if you can't manage and regulate your emotions, you're not going to be able to manage your other symptoms. Totally understandable. Emotional regulation. You got to learn to go through life, if you can, flat. Yeah, you're going to have your highs and your lows, but you got to learn to be in control. Because if you're not, you're going to struggle your whole day. It's going to kill you at work. How do you get along with other people? How do you make good decisions? Emotional regulation. It's like you notice when teams start to play before a game, they do the warm-ups and they're jumping, they're stretching, they're hitting each other on the back. They're like, come on, man, come on. And before the game, you'll see basketball players like get together in that big group hug and sway back and forth. They try and get each other pumped with the introductions. Everyone's going like this. They're different things, to say, hey, let's go. But the important thing is, and the great players understand this, you got to be calm. You can't get crazy over every initial foul, every initial shot, every point. If you're there to score 35 points a game, you're the man. You score on a free throw within like 15 seconds. You can't be screaming up and down for 30 seconds because your guy's going to go blow by you for a dunk. Can't do that. You got to play the full 48 minutes. You got to be emotionally focused. Regulate your emotions. People that go through trauma, complex trauma, they are pumped all the time. Every little thing gets them going, stirs them up. You don't want to do that. I don't have any problems really. Just start taking tennis lessons and I just feel happier. Let me share this right now. The number one way you can combat depression and all kinds of trauma and PTSD is exercise. Number one. I like to hear that. You're playing a sport. Great. Because if you play any kind of sport, you release endorphins that floods your brain. Those are happy emotions. Those are happy feelings. It's going to affect you in a positive way. Better than medication, better than therapy, exercise. The more you exercise, the better the body is going to feel, the better you will feel, and the more you can hold at bay those feelings of depression, those feelings of trauma, those feelings of anxiety. Yes, the mistake that people make is that they damage their body by heavy drinking, heavy drug usage, and overeating. Why would I have one bag of fries from McDonald's when I can have 3 bags and I supersize them and drown them in ketchup, drown them in mustard, go home, eat them, feel like crap, but hey, I staved off having to deal with my problems. I now have a sugar high. I have a salt high. I have, just ate a lot of carbohydrates. I'm not going to lose that weight, but that's what people do. You don't want to do that to yourself. Always, always, always exercise. Has massive improvements on the body, your skin, your muscles, everything, your brain. Exercise. Thank you, Nick. I'm glad you told me that. All right. So I want to clarify that. But emotional regulation, that is so strong. It's like, how do you define work? Like, what is work? Do you think everyone loves their job? Of course not. It's a fantasy. Everyone goes to work like, oh, God, and I'm pretty happy. I actually like my job. But I have to learn to be focused. And if I make a mistake, I got to own up to it. I got to deal with my staff. Everyone has a boss. You got to learn how to work with people. You got to learn how to work with people. That's what emotional regulation is. But when you don't have that, when everything is hyper, fight or flight, you don't think clearly. So I wanted to clarify that. And it gives these intense emotions. I understand that. And that's something you got to work on, not to get too high, not to get too low. One last thing on this topic, something that coaches hate. Let's just say you got, let's go with basketball. It's easy to kind of quantify. If you're a 20-point scorer a game, so one game you score 5 points, the next game you score 35 points, well, that's 20 points a game. The problem is the coach is going to pull his hair out because he can't depend on you. Because one game you're on fire, the other game you're ice cold. That's not good. You need to score 20 points consistently, doing it all the time. If you're good for 10 rebounds, one game you grab 3, one game you grab 15, that's not going to help the team. It's very, topsy-turvy, and coaches are like, this guy's not a starter because he can't do it every single time. Baseball, you're going to guarantee yourself at least 1 to 2 hits a game. Consistent versus one game you get 4 hits, next 2 games you get 3 strikeouts and 1 pop-up. Coaches hate that. They want you to be consistent. What does a boss want more than anything? That when you're given an assignment, you get it done, and you get it done in such a way that the boss gets a compliment. Oh, you sent Bruce to do it? Oh, thank you so much. The presentation went really well. He handled the assessment fine. He spoke to the family. They were really pleased how he spoke to them. There were some disagreements, but he got it resolved. You make your boss look good, because then they say, I can rely on this guy. He stays calm. He stays focused. He gets the job done without me having to rip him like, what were you thinking? What were you doing? Why would you act that way? You represent me. So any question about this kind of stuff right now, feel free to ask, answer, share. Looking forward to it. And again, I'm explaining all of these things because these are all outgrowths of dysfunction. And that's why in 2 weeks, on the 22nd at 5:30, we're going to have our next training on dysfunctional families. Why? I don't want you guys to have to go through this when you have your own families. So learn about yourself now, learn about your PTSD, understand it so you make better choices and better options. And when you do have your own family, you are getting older, you're around people, you're making good choices, not bad choices like unfortunately these people are doing, not because they're dumb or stupid, but no one's ever explained to them what is actually going on and how to make better choices. Here's another example, just for me and food. As you can see, I haven't missed many meals in my life. And normally when I would come over here years ago, I'd stop at where else 7-Eleven and I'd get a Big Gulp. Big Gulp would be Diet Coke with Dr. Pepper and a bag of potato chips, if not 2 of them, or a bag of potato chips and some snack cakes. Can't do that anymore. I'm going to punish myself. So what have I done? I'll get myself a vitamin water, either almonds, or I'll get cashews on the nut section. Now, does my heart, stir for potato chips? No argument here. I love them all. No hatred towards any brand. I can eat potato chips all day. Do I like snack foods and junk food? Right here. But I can't eat that stuff anymore. It's bad for my health. So I have the cashews, I have the almonds, I'll have like a granola bar, whatever they're going to sell there. That's it. That's what I'm doing. No more soda. got to take better care of myself to be emotionally regulated with my diet and with my health. Hope that makes sense to everyone watching. Any questions right now? Feel free to ask. Feel free to shoot in a comment. No problem. Okay. Here's what's going to happen also. Emotional flashbacks. Flashbacks are something that all PTSD survivors can deal with, and there are 3 types. There's the visual flashback. What's a visual flashback? Your mind's triggered and transported back to the trauma, and you feel as if you're there. That's the visual. Then there's a somatic. You feel it. You feel the sensations, the pain and discomfort in all areas of your body, and it can't be explained by any other health issue. Numbness in your hand, tingling in your hand, okay, headaches, lightheaded, migraine, feeling woozy in your stomach. That's the somatic. Pain and discomfort, and you having sensations in areas of the body. I'm feeling, my legs getting numb. I'm feeling tingling up my toes. That's what happens. And the answer is, Nick, you are correct. Vitamin water is not that great for you because it does have sugar in it. So what am I learning to do? I am slowly easing my way to carbonated water, like club soda. That's my next step. So no more vitamin water. I look for now carbonated water or just vitamin zero where there's literally no calories. But yeah, I'm moving to the point now. If I see a carbonated option, that's what I'm going to pour into for my big gulp. But no more sodas for sure. And coffee, almost zero. And even the vitamin waters are not that great for me. And I'm trying to move away from those and just stick strictly to carbonated drinks. That's it. Just carbonation, basically water. And that's where I'm moving towards. Because again, I got to take better care of myself and not make these mistakes physically. But a couple of years ago, 2 bags of chips. Oh, snack cakes are on sale, 2 for $1.99. Well, I got to get 4. Can't do that stuff anymore. I was in a 7-Eleven like a year ago. I'll never forget this. It was funny to me. There was this young little black girl, like 6 years old, and cute little thing, and she saw a donut that was bigger than her head. And she's like, "Mommy, can I get the donut, Mommy?" And the mom's like, "You can, baby. You got your dinner coming up." And I'm like, "Get the kid the donut. Let her have the donut, But she can eat that. I can't. That's the difference. That's the point. It's cute on her. It's not cute on me. That's the point. And I'm like in my head, come on, give in. Try root for the kid. But that's how people pick up on this stuff. When you understand what you can and what you can't have. Okay. And then there's finally emotional flashbacks. The least known and understood, yet the type complex trauma survivors often have. That's where emotions from the past are triggered. And often you don't understand why that's even happening. Okay. And it appears that the survivor is being irrationally emotional. What you got to understand is that it's how emotions are felt during the trauma being triggered, but there's no visual of the trauma, as with a lot of work trying to understand what is an emotional flashback. We don't really understand. What they're basically saying is we still don't get why you would have an emotional flashback. Why? What triggers it? What is the factor? Because the other two, the visual and the somatic, okay, you could relate to it. But a flashback, what's happening in your coconut to make you feel the way that you're doing? We don't really understand yet why, but we know that people do have them, and these emotional flashbacks are real. It could be that you picking up an odor of something. It could be something tactile. You rush against something. You hear a certain scream, a certain comment, a certain make of a car, a certain color. But it just shows you how complicated the brain really is. And these emotional flashbacks do exist. But what part of the brain are they being fired from? What sensory motion? That we're still learning about. But they are real. Okay, again, any questions, feel free to fire them. We are here to listen. We are here to answer your questions. By the way, guys, I know it's a small audience right now. That is our goal when we do the training, is to give people a chance to ask questions, get answers right away. No need to wait. No need to spend 3 weeks hoping to get an appointment. No need to fill out 20 sheets of paper. You come on board. You got a question. You get it answered right away. Boom. And that's why we look at ourselves as disruptors. Casper Mattress, Warby Parker Sunglasses, Harry Shave Club, all people that said we want to go to the consumer and not have you go, we get rid of the middleman. We are doing that exact same thing with this training, where we don't have you go through all these hoops and hurdles. You know who I am. You know what I bring to the table. Fire away. You're going to get an answer which you would never get in real time anywhere else. Okay. From my experience, emotional flashbacks can happen when personalities or things trigger you. Absolutely. Obviously, this depends on what type of trauma you've been through. Great point. Excellent. Yeah. What you've been through. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. The VA for a while was bringing back Earth from Iraq and Afghanistan for vets that had been through a trauma-filled experience there that were having PTSD issues. They were bringing in smell of blood. They were bringing in the smell of dynamite, of earth being shattered, of paint melting off the side of a half track, an IED explosion, just to kind of get those triggers going for people to kind of relate to them. So what causes the emotional flashback? We don't really know, but like this person made a good comment, can happen when personalities where things trigger you. People are yelling, screaming. You see a lot of times in movies, they'll have the person's mouth, like yelling at somebody. You suck, you stink, I hate you, and you were always going to be dumb in math. You're never going to have any friends. You can't hold a job. You're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser. And all of a sudden, the person just snaps because it just all of a sudden triggered these feelings, these intense emotions, this emotional flashback from being a kid, from being abused, yelled, scream at, that you just lose it and you just go after the person that's yelling at you and screaming at you. That's what will happen. So good point. Thank you, Time Samurai. I appreciate that. Okay, now, next phase that you're going to see happen, hypervigilance about people. Oh, boy. Yeah, potential. That's kind of the hypervigilance when I'm talking about terminal awareness, is hypervigilance around people and about people, because you're always expecting things to go south. So you're always on eggshells because you're always wondering how your comment's going to trigger somebody, how your joke will affect somebody. Hypervigilance. I grew up in a house where, man, the mood could change quickly. And if you weren't figuring it out and being like 4 steps ahead, you paid a consequence for it. Or you're with a group of your friends and you've quickly realized or slowly realize you're the butt of the joke. You're the one they're going to be making fun of. And you start to take that with you when you go to other groups. Is this going to be the same thing happening to me again? Am I going to be bullied by everybody? You start to figure out, like, it's going to affect me. It's going to expose me to ridicule, make me embarrassed, make me humiliated. So that goes back to the hypervigilance about people. And they need to work people out. And since most Charles cues are nonverbal, their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions, and what are their habits? I grew up like that. You're trying to read people and trying to figure them out before they lose it. So you're trying to see if someone turns on you, gets them angry, gets frustrated. You start to see that, before you get hit. A lot of times in domestic violence, it's very, very common. Oh, he's upset. I could see the look in his eyes. The beer wasn't cold enough. I didn't make his favorite meal on time. He's waiting in his armchair. He's going to grab me. I think he's looking to grab something to throw at me. He's not thinking clearly. He's getting upset. He's going to smash something. When he drinks too much, watch out, because anything could happen. That's what starts to happen. You get that hypervigilance about people. You're always trying to figure out, is this the moment where they're going to lose it and scream at you and validate your cues about people and realize what gets them angry, what gets them frustrated. So I've seen that a lot also. People have described that to me. It's like walking around on eggshells, walking around like a snarling dog. When is he going to bite you? I know certain things trigger me into a state of anxiety and hopelessness. I used to feel from a previous relationship. It gets so bad that it causes me body tremors when I try to sleep. 100%. I mean, you go to bed because you're not, you're not going to sleep that night. You're going to be so tense and so wired that's very hard for you to calm down and chill out. Question then two. I try my best to avoid triggers because they really ruin my ability to sleep and function. I think, but I'm not sure if this is the best coping mechanism. What I want you to do, Rachel, is this. I want you a couple of things to do before you go to bed. Let's say you're 11 o'clock. You like to go to bed by 11. 10:30 at night, and I'm not going to say I'm the best at this, turn off anything electronic. You need half an hour for your brain to chill. So don't answer text messages till literally right before you fall asleep and leave your phone by you. Don't do that. At 10:30, shut everything off. Your computer, your laptop, your phone, whatever social media site you're on, turn it off. Okay? Then what I want you to do is do some meditation, some deep breathing exercises. Get yourself ready for bed. Like, brush your teeth, lay out your clothes for the night before, but get yourself into a schedule on how you're going to go to sleep and get yourself in a state of relaxation. So when you hit the pillow, you're not racing with things you haven't dealt with before. You're preparing yourself for a good night's sleep. Take your phone, put it away from you. Don't be answering any kind of emails during the night or text messages or DM. Don't do that. Just get yourself ready to go to bed and be consistent. And don't use your bed as like a place just to chill, like just to answer calls and messages and have the TV on, because then the brain is not seeing the bed as a place to be restful. It's seeing as a place to keep revving. And you got to let your brain chill out. Okay, I hope that helps. My doc gave me gabapentin, but I wish there was a better way to cope. See if these methods help you, Rachel, and let us know if they've worked. But I will tell you this, like I said again, half an hour before, don't eat a heavy meal. Don't gorge yourself. Don't drink a lot of caffeine-filled drinks. That's going to keep you up. Try not to drink a lot of water, with soda before you go to bed. It's a diuretic. The soda, and you're going to be going to the bathroom all night. Every hour and a half, you're going to wake up having to go to the bathroom to urinate. You don't want to do that stuff. You want your body to be as relaxed as possible. Make sure you got good airflow. It's not too hot, not too cold, and go nappy time. That's really the goal. All right. I feel you, Rachel. I had PTSD, but I was afraid to sleep. Bruce is right. Make a safe atmosphere before bed and make it consistent. See, that's a good point. I want to share this, everybody. Life is about consistency. When you're doing things that are going to just jack up your day and jack up your night, and you're never going to be consistent when you go to sleep, it's like the athlete. One game, 20 points, next game, 5. Not what the coach is really looking for. You're playing football. One game you have 12 tackles and a quarterback sack. Next game, you got 1 tackle and the guys are running right through your area. Not good. Coaches go nuts over that. Same thing with work. You got to get a certain amount of work done each day. If it starts to pile up, you don't get this done, you don't get that done, eventually your boss is going to get a printout of what you didn't do and call you in and rip you a new one. You don't want that. You always want to be on top of your paperwork. So I always have my cheat list of what I got to get done and then what I have to get done, what I still got to get done, because it never ends. If you're really working at your job, there's always things to take care of, emails to send, courses to take, follow-ups to take care of, get back to this one, get back to that one, get this started. I'm always making lists for myself. I mean, I'm an old school guy, but whatever it is, you want to be consistent in getting a certain amount of work done every single day. Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you, Time, for saying that. By the way, I just want to announce the 3 best commenters tonight will be given a chance, not a chance, we'll announce your name out loud to get access to our free training. We'll get a free training click, and we'll have you send us your email, and so we can send it to you. We'll give you the code to unlock it, so you can do the training of dysfunctional families on the 22nd at 5:30. It's our treat to thank you for being engaged. The 3 best comments. So if you got them, use them. Share with us, and we'll go from there. Thanks. I do need that reminder. Take your time to take care of myself, probably so I can function properly. Yeah, I can say this. Again, I'm 58 and I sleep horribly. I am not a good sleeper anymore. I used to be when I was a kid. Those days are gone. And I get up at night. I'm not able to relax my brain. There are times I literally turn off the computer, and 45 seconds later, I brush my teeth, and I'm in bed like 2 minutes later. And I know it's going to take me a while to fall asleep because I didn't listen to my own self. So I'm just telling you guys, make sure to take care of yourself so that when you do go nappy time, when you go off to see the Sandman, you're doing it in a controlled way, not and then just plop into bed. It's not going to work because your brain is going to start clicking like a car that you turn off. It needs time. It needs time to rest. The same way your brain needs that same time to get itself ready, treat it the same exact way. Okay. Any other questions about this? Feel free to ask because now's the time to ask. Not a problem. Okay. And that's another thing, too, I've learned is facial expressions. Man, I become a master at reading people and almost knowing what they're going to say before they say it. And that's what happens when you have complex trauma. You're looking for a lot of non-visual cues. You know, what does their face look like? What does their body motion look like? Are they pacing back and forth? Do you see the anger in their eyes? Are they going to pick something up? Are they like getting edgy now? Are they slamming something? These are all non-visuals, but they're all very, very accurate because they're telling you where the person is going to go from this and how they are going to act. So you want to be aware of that kind of stuff. So visual cues, non-visual cues, huge, okay? But it happens, you know, because you're looking at things and you want to understand that. So there's facial expressions and those nonverbals, their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions. All right, now, loss of faith. Huge. Huge. People that have been through trauma often will say, I don't believe in God anymore. God is dead to me. Higher power is dead to me. What kind of God could do this to me? I was a good person. I was a good father, good husband. I was a good Muslim. I was a good Christian. I was a good Jew. And there are 8,000 denominations of religion. And all of a sudden, something tragic happens and you don't believe anymore. Loss of faith. Okay, that happens. And what I want to share with you about this, you start seeing is everything is like the world is dangerous. People are all potentially abusive and they walk away from it. You know, how can God do this? How can God do this? All he talks about is compassion. If you love God, he loves you. So what kind of God does this? Religion also has a kind of a hard problem with this. What they tend to say is, you know, we can't answer what God is thinking. Like, you know, they give you that impression that they do know, but like, well, you followed all the laws, you followed all the commandments, you went to church regularly, you went to the mosque regularly. What happened? What happened? You know, how could these terrible things happen to me? I'm a good person. I'm a believer. I follow this stuff. And then something heinous happens and you realize that clergy often does not have the answer. Well, we don't know what goes in the mind of God or what he's thinking of or why he wanted this person to come back to him earlier. Hard, right? Other than simply saying something like, hey, it happens. I don't have an answer. You're probably going to have a huge loss of faith in the power of God to look out for you, but I'm letting you know I'm here to listen. Sometimes it comes across as disingenuous, like, you know, we can't know what's in the mind of God. You know, he wanted your baby back. And it's kind of like almost insulting. And when I tell people who've had a tragedy and have lost their faith, I say to them all the time, I don't have an answer. I don't know why this happened to you. Yes, you are a good person. And if you want to talk about it and you want to, you know, complain to God. Yell at him, but don't give up. You know, it's easier said than done. I'm not trying to make light of a tragedy. But I say, if you have a prayer book, you have prayers, say to God, why do you do this to me? You got a better chance of getting an answer than I do for you. So something heinous happens to your family or to you, talk to your higher power and say, how could you do this to me? What kind of God is this? I thought you were compassionate. I thought you were merciful. I thought you were loving. Who does this to somebody? I'm one of your followers, for God's sakes. Let it out. You know, too often we're so passive in our feelings that if we say anything that's, you know, derogatory, we're not, you know, in the dictionary or the playbook or the guidebook, we're bad. How could you feel this way? Where's your faith? What kind of loyalty do you have? You're not really religious. Hey, you know what? Until you've been through a horrible tragedy, you don't know what that's like. So I don't get myself all excited when someone says something to me. They don't really know what they're talking about. I've been through a fair amount of trauma in my own life. And I'll tell you something, it's like getting punched in the face like 100 times in a row. And then like you think maybe you live through it if you're lucky. And then they start on your stomach and hit you with 100 shots to your belly. And, you're like, the pain is just beyond excruciating. That's not even 0.1% of really dealing with hardcore trauma. So I'm just saying, I never say I have the answer or this is what God meant or, find out when you pass away. That's, not a great answer as far as I'm concerned. The question is, though, is to let the person vent, let the person grieve, be there for them, and say, if you're angry, now's a perfect time to let God know how you feel. Hope that helps. People have any questions about this kind of stuff, fire away. Board is open. No problem with comments. And this is the kind of thing, guys, I want to share with everybody. These are what the trainings are about, this same exact example. You get a chance to say things that you wouldn't have a chance anywhere else to talk about. And you get answers like that. Boom. There's no waiting. There's no, well, maybe this, maybe not. Maybe a little bit of A, maybe a little bit of C, maybe a little bit of E, F, and G. I don't play that. I got an answer. I got a perspective. I'm going to share it with you right away. That's the beauty of the trainings. And you get a chance to see things on a different level, on a deeper level, because you paid the entrance fee. And you get a chance to get homework, books to read, movies to look at, to understand yourself. And this topic about dysfunctional families is huge because it affects so many families in so many different facets of their lives. Okay, next one. You're going to have what's called a profoundly hurt inner child, right? That's it. It continues to affect them, and the child is repeatedly hurt and abused. The violence and the victimization goes on, and you will have these unmet childhood needs of safety, protection, being cherished and loved will often become like weird and bizarre. Like, who would think like that? And as in other adults, and you search for mother and father figures, and you get what's called transference. You see, that's the danger. You start searching for mommy and daddy figures. You don't want to do that. That's dangerous. When you start looking for people that are not your blood, oh, he's going to fill my void. She's going to fill my void. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. You don't want to start doing that because that's a very, very bad habit to get into. That's why so many people get sucked up into cults, into being manipulated, into doing things they would never have done. Like, oh, we're your family. We're your family. Man, you're not my family. I got a family. But you get to that point that you want to find a family because you feel that things are so horrific that you didn't get what you needed. So your inner child is hurt. You're looking for another set of mommies and daddies. That's why I keep on telling parents, before you have children, you got to get your behaviors and your habits fixed and figure out who you are and what you need to work on. Okay. I have a question. It isn't religious, but I'm wondering if there's something about having trauma that attracts more of it. Here's the thing. People who take advantage of people with trauma, that's you got to be careful of. That they'll say like, oh, he's grieving over the loss of his wife. He's grieving over the loss of his brother due to a drive-by. He's grieving over the loss of his wife due to cancer. He went through a horrific car accident. Yeah, you're going to be more susceptible because your emotions are going to be wearing on your face. We like what they say, wearing it on your sleeve. So you're going to attract people who unfortunately look for people like yourself and take advantage of them. Now, of course, it's on the line. So you go to a chat room, grieving widow, traumatized survivor, and people are watching it. They're not necessarily having those same issues as you, but are going there to troll. They're looking for people they can manipulate and victimize. I've seen this happen a lot. People have shared this with me. Oh, I went online. I met him. He was charming, wonderful, warm. He was there for me. He made me laugh. Yeah, then he also cleaned out my bank account, stole all my credit cards, and tied me up for 2 days until I was able to break free and let the police know he took complete advantage of me. But he seemed like the nicest guy. Yeah, because you invite trouble by your trusting nature, where your unhappy nature, where you need to have a nature, and you let people in that are really sharks that should not get anywhere near you because they're going to clean out the hen house. Okay. It's never just one thing. It always seems like more than one. Yeah, excellent point, Time Samurai. Yeah. Because what's happening is it's almost like Teflon. No, well, not Teflon. You're getting, as things are going by you, they're hitting you. They're getting on top of you. It's like when you ever played the old game Tetris, where once you got to the point you couldn't salvage your board anymore, you couldn't fill up the pieces, and all of a sudden the stuff started coming, bam, 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 game over. Inevitable. The great ones could keep going on for hours, but people like myself, 20, 30, 40 lines, that's all I could really handle. And then all of a sudden, boom, the game is over. You've gone as high as you could. And that's what happens when you have that issue of how you see yourself. So that's what you don't want to get into that. And you're searching that hurt inner child. I still want to be told I'm beautiful, I'm special, you care about me, you love me. How many people have told me this? My dad and my mom, they were cold to me. They didn't make me feel good about myself. They never encouraged me. They never said, you're the handsomest kid in school. You're the prettiest girl on the block. I love having you as a son and as a daughter. They don't get it. They don't get it. That's what happens. And they look for it, and of course, in all the wrong places. And you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be, having a son on your head saying, take advantage of me. I'm vulnerable. You never want to have those rebound relationships where you feel miserable and someone takes advantage of you. You don't want to do that. Okay. Now, next one, helplessness and toxic shame. All right. The survivor can develop a sense of hopelessness. They are so profoundly damaged, they see no way in any which way to get better. No hope of anything changing. And even when it stops, deep core levels of being hopeless. Terribly life-impacting symptoms, stuck with the trauma, little hope of it easing. Toxic shame is a common issue survivors of complex trauma endure. And they sometimes think that they don't deserve to get better. Yeah, and of course the worst one is sexual abuse when your body is being violated. Your sense of sexuality, your sense of sexual norms, your sense of a loving, intimate relationship shattered. That's what the person does to you. They shatter your feelings of normal. It's not normal to have a 225-pound guy laying on top of a 12-year-old boy, sexually abusing him. We're showing graphic pornography to a 13-year-old girl and telling her this is normal. It's not normal. It's sick. And sexual abuse, your sense of self, particularly when it's family who's supposed to care for you, love you, protect you, and you're not there for them or you are part of the abuse itself. How do you look at yourself in the mirror? You can't, unless you punch the mirror into 1,000 pieces. But looking at yourself when it happens to you, with your naked body, you get revolted. You can't handle yourself in a bikini. You want to get on a burqa because your body has been violated. Your sense of trust has been lost, shattered, and broken. You just don't want to have that happen to you. So I understand that part about, helplessness and toxic shame. Toxic, not just regular shame, but you feel worthless. You feel like you deserved it. You feel like no one's going to want to be around you, that no one cares about you. That's the toxicity of the shame. It's like having battery acid poured on top of it. You got the regular shame, and then you got the toxic shame, the battery acid, the human waste, the industrial sewage poured on top of that. That's what makes it so intense, because it's going to be that toxic shame and that hopelessness. Any questions? Again, fire away, not a problem. So I realize people are kind of absorbing this topic in and really trying to understand it and how it relates to you. And the goal is to understand that it can very, very easily relate to you. And you got to learn how to make those good decisions, those good thoughts, so you can begin to move forward in a healthy way. Okay, here's another one. Repeated search for a rescuer. They lead to the wrong type of people and get re-traumatized over and over again. Repeated search for a rescuer. Oh, I'm dating him. I'm dating her. He's going to rescue me. She's going to show me how to live. He's going to teach me how to be healthy. She's going to show me how to be normal. And a lot of times they're looking to set you up to take advantage of you. That happens, a lot. I don't want to shift the discussion, but when you get to time, could you talk about the mental effects of pornography? You know what I'm going to do on that one? That's going to be a separate topic by itself. That's a great question, and I've dealt with so many kids that were exposed to pornography on many different levels. Pictures, videos, groups that would take advantage of them. I will make a note of that. I will do a full topic of that probably next month. Push them in 90. I just, someone told me today, one of the hottest things out there on the internet is called fans only. Everyone has these pages now where what they do is only the people that are willing to pay for it can see you in, of course, sexual poses. They're not going to show you cooking, or, reading the Bible or knitting a scarf. It's going to have you in explicit poses and doing all kinds of things for your quote, quote, fans. And it's become normal, like, hey, I do this not because I am this way, because it brings in money. And you don't realize what you're doing to yourself and the effect it has on you long term. But am I surprised? Why would I be? People are struggling for money. People need income. So what do you have left at a certain point is your body. And everyone has this now. Fans only, fans only. As long as you pay, you get to see me in a whole different light, generally without clothes. Okay. And, you think like, who would want to watch this? Turns out plenty of people want to watch this. So just letting you know this is what goes on. So I will do a special topic of this next week. I'm sorry, OnlyFans, my bad. And thank you. Thank you, Nate. And yeah, OnlyFans. OnlyFans, because you got to pay, just for anybody. Pay. And it's normal. It's not normal. Okay. Thank you again, Nay. As I reflected on my own trauma, trying to learn how to cope over the years, I've kind of separated myself into two people. Sometimes I have to proactively be the adult, me, and try to reassure, emphasize, and accept the child, me, that might be acting into irrational due to past trauma, which has become a pretty healing relationship with myself. What you're doing is very common. It's called splitting. When you have trauma that's so severe, you break yourself in half. I mean, people say to me a lot of times, it used to be much more popular to talk about, like there was a thing called Sybil many years ago. It was an actress named Sally Field, played her in her 20s. It's a long time ago, obviously. But it would be like disassociation, splitting myself. And the point was that you had different characters, usually because of extreme trauma, sexual, emotional, physical, but always sexual. And the body would split, the soul would split. I remember this woman telling me when she was being molested by her father, it was so repulsive, so loathsome, so horrific that she felt her aura, her spirit rise up, and she was looking down on herself being violated. And she said, well, she's weak. I'm not. I'm tough. And she split off into like 4 or 5 different characters to try and like piece part of her brain together as a way to cope. What you're saying is so true, Rachel, and very, very accurate and very, very true. That's what people do. So I'm hoping that things are getting back together. You just get to one person. Like, and I know in comic books and movies, it's seen as something cool. I'm like 3 different personalities, 5 different personalities. No, it's not good. But you do that as a way to try and protect yourself from going insane and having a psychotic break, because the trauma is just so severe. I totally understand that. It's why do people abuse alcohol and drugs who come back from combat? I don't want to think about it. 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 I don't think about it. That's what you do. Or you overeat. Or you get into horrible relationships. Oh, at least he's around. He beats me, yells at me, curses me, throws things at me, takes my money, but I don't have to think about my trauma. Totally understandable. Good luck with that. And I hope you get better. So that's the thing too. You're looking for that rescuer. Man, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. And you don't ever want to be victimized again, because what happens is every time you go through severe trauma and you have a break, your ability to function drops. and you're starting from a lower level. You want to keep as much as possible your coconut going. Every time you lose touch with reality and you kind of like lose it for good for a while to get back onto the saddle, you don't want to do that because it totally affects how your brain functions over time. Multiple breaks with reality are going to affect you, just reality in itself. Okay, next one, disassociation. Okay, it makes sense. You don't want to be exposed to it. And you have dissociative identity disorder, people emotionally unable to cope with trauma the same way an adult can. Oh, man, it's so huge. That's basically what she was talking about before. You disassociate yourself. You don't want to deal with the trauma, so you just mentally avoid it that way. Huge, and it's a big problem. You never want to kind of get to the point you're not on top of your issues and working to try and get better at them and fix them. Okay. Next one. There's two more left. Persistent sadness and being suicidal. Of course, totally understandable. Why wouldn't you be always suicidal? Why wouldn't you always be frustrated about yourself? You don't feel good about yourself. Totally understandable. Complex trauma survivors, high risk for suicidal thoughts, ideation of being actively suicidal as a way of coping. Got to end the severe pain. And that's scary again. You think this is a normal reaction to my problems in life. I got to go to the end, got to kill myself. That's my only option. Believe me, I've had a lot of problems in my life. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more problems in my life. But I've never actively thought that ideation, planning, and thoughts of it were the way to go. And maybe for a brief moment, for a few seconds, I'll end my pain. It's so complicated. It's so difficult. But do I want to really go that route? Really not. That's not what I'm looking to do. I want to look for options. I want to give up, throw in the towel. But that happens so often where you get that persistent sadness and being suicidal. You don't want to do that. Finally, here's the last one. It's called muscle armoring. What does that basically do is you're always ready to fight. You're always preparing yourself. It's body hypervigilance. The body is braced. You're almost ready for combat all the time. This leads to pain issues because it becomes overworked. Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, because you don't know how to manage yourself and you're always like this. It puts a lot of stress on the body, could lead to medical problems like fibromyalgia. And they're very normal. These are all normal feelings when you have that complex trauma, but you want to get away from that stuff. You don't want to have that happen to you. And that's the point, is to learn coping strategies now so it doesn't affect you for the rest of your life. That's the issue. That really is the whole point. Anyone has any questions, feel free to ask right now. Because we're going to announce really soon our winners for tonight, who really gave some really insightful comments and were there. And this is what I want to try and bring across and share, is that these things are real. I have another article I'm not going to get to tonight talking about what they had to study in rats about the prefrontal cortex, which is right here, and the amygdala, which is in the back of your head, and what happens when you have hyperarousal as a young rat and you're not exposed to your mom, which so many kids don't get the nurturing that they need from their families growing up. And then they give suggestions like the brain's always growing, you can fix it, don't give up, don't throw in the towel. But I can tell you from experience, it's very hard not to, because once you're wired a certain way, it is very, 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 very difficult to find alternative ways that are actually going to be healthy. That's the point. That's what I'm trying to talk about here. And this is why I want to talk about this topic tonight, and why in 2 weeks we're going to do dysfunctional families. And, understand where you're coming from so you don't go into that same genre. You don't repeat yourself over and over again. That's why I have an LCSW. I have over 25 years of experience, treated thousands of people, many of them with complex trauma. And I was one of the first people in Las Vegas, I think, to really start shouting, what is this antisocial? What is this oppositional defiant disorder stuff? It's trauma. The reason why these kids are acting out the way they're doing is because they're terrified. Their brains aren't working properly. They're in hyperarousal. They're making terrible choices, looking for people to benefit them, and they're being taken advantage of. They can't relate to anybody. That's why they're 15-year-old girls weighs 80 pounds overweight. Doesn't like herself. Doesn't feel she can make it with anybody. She's damaged goods. Who wants her? So that's why I'm doing the training in 2 weeks on the 22nd at 5:30, $10 through PayPal. It's a bargain. No waiting around, no 3 weeks. Oh, I can't get in to see this therapist where they're charging $175 for an hour. My insurance doesn't cover it. My insurance will give me only an intern with someone lousy. Here's a guy that understands where things are coming from and really, really understands them. $10 through PayPal. Any questions are in the description box. And if you have any further questions, shoot us an email at sunridgeofnevada@gmail.com. I'm going to give you an hour's worth of information, tons of stories, tons of examples, and I'm going to talk about training, questions for homework, answer doing it, books to read, movies to watch, clips to understand. So you walk out of there with understanding about yourself on a completely different level. Okay. Almost lost my dad a couple of months ago, and someone feel like I had to take care of my little brother. I never felt worse. Yeah, you're carrying the load. Not easy. If you don't mind sharing how old you are, but I give you a lot of credit. Takes a lot of guts to do what you're doing. You're shouldering the load, and you're doing something that's not really meant for you to be doing. Unfortunately, you're 17. Man, I'm humbled. I'm humbled talking to you. That takes a lot of, I don't want to say guts, but just what you're doing is off the chain, is impressive. Here. Bowing to you. Almost lost them. And you had to take care of your family. You stepped up. And when you take on that kind of role, it's never easy. Thank you. Takes a lot of guts to do what you did, and to share that with us, I'm impressed. Thank you very much for doing so. It says a lot about you and your character. So we're going to, again, want to just share, who the winners are going to be tonight. I'm going to let you know right now. We have 2 winners tonight. Time Samurai, and we got Rachel Martinez, and I'm going to throw in Nay as well. N-A-E, you made it. If you can still do this, if you didn't win, you can purchase a ticket, through PayPal, $10. Again, everything's in the description box. Okay. And if you need to, contact us at sunridgeofnevada@gmail.com with any questions. We take the crypto. But again, Time Samurai, you won. Rachel Martinez, you won. And Nay, you won. So please contact us at sunridgeofnevada@gmail.com. We'll give you the code that you need to lock into the training in 2 weeks. Please come to the training, because it will help you a lot to understand yourselves even more and where things are going. Thanks, Bruce. No problem. So please come. The 3 winners, please come to the training. I want to get your input. I want to get your suggestions. I want to get your thoughts. I want you to tell people, man, this guy blew me up. Maybe understand myself so much better. Thank you. So again, tonight, really good questions, really good points, really good perspectives. So next week's, the schedule. We're going to finish up with a couple of music videos. And the following week, Dysfunctional Families. Please join, please join, please join. You will get a ton of help and understanding about yourself from there. And again, Bruce Muffson, LCSW. 25 years experience. I've treated thousands of people from all walks of life, all types of populations, in-home, outpatient, inpatient, tons of testifying, tons of training, comfortable with every bit out there from 3 to 83. Nothing phases me. Unfortunately, I've pretty much seen it all. So you understand who I am and what I bring to the table. Last questions. Anyone has any questions? Okay. I appreciate that. My sister's going through rehab and is taken about how our dysfunctional family might have affected my mental health. Ding, 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 ding. You definitely got to tune in. You and your sis got to tune in. Absolutely. Please do that. Thank you. That makes me feel validated. Perfect. Any last questions, throw them down next few seconds. If not, I want to say thank you to everybody. You got the commercial highlights. You know what's going to be happening next couple of weeks. Please please come and watch. Well, next week will be the breakdowns, and the following week will be the trainings. Will be the training. We'll go from there. So without any further ado, I don't see any other questions coming. We're going to call it a night. Thank you guys. Bruce Muffson, LCSW, Sunridge of Nevada.